Why does Kaiana think Kupuohi is making a mistake? Keoua had no intention of concealing the assault. He desired a spectacular display of the fervor that burns in his veins. In actuality, Kamehameha's unwillingness to acknowledge that his cousin would act in such a manner speaks more to his own ethics than Keoua's. However, even he is aware that there is no other motive for harming Kohala. Though advising his leader to get ready for war doesn't make Kaiana pleased, he is merely acting in accordance with his moral convictions. Moku agrees with him. However, Kamehameha's counsel has a stronger voice than men's. Kohala politics has benefited greatly from Kamehameha's intellectual prowess. Additionally, Kamehameha, the first woman to have a voice in matters of war and administration, has created an environment where the voice of reason is not disregarded simply because the speaker is a woman. Kupuohi has also been fierce in her own domain. She therefore has the confidence of a woman who has never turned to males for guidance or solutions when she stands up for peace in the court of men and volunteers to try to persuade Keoua to declare a truce. This might not sit well with people like Moku. However, Kamehameha found that women's counsel is considerably more sensitive than men's. Kamehameha never takes a passive approach. His sarcasm also makes it clear that he supports women's inclusion in the political discussion around Hawaii's future. Kupuohi puts more faith in Keoua's ability to think rationally than Kaiana does. Although he may be correct, Kaiana's ideas are clearly influenced by the cynicism that his trip to Zamboanga has given him. The pants he still wears at home and the rifle he carries with him are meant to give Kupuohi the impression that Kaiana has become a little too much like the Paleskin. Even Kupuohi makes fun of Kaiana for the indications of his Europeanness when he and a gun-wielding Kaiana visit Keoua to try to reason with Keoua. However, Kaiana is not a pet of the Europeans. When they target locations, he is afraid of the debris that results. His paranoia, which is actively controlling his words and behavior, has nearly replaced his terror. That kind much ruins any chance that Kupuohi will be able to make peace during her meeting with Keoua. Because she is originally from Keoua, her optimism was dependent on this. Keoua, however, was never going to pursue peace. Everything else has been obscured by his tunnel vision, save for the god of war and the glory and privilege his father gave Kamehameha. He has the power to destroy the entire globe for the god of war. Keoua's intensely self-centered fixation with power over the Kingdom of Hawai'i has driven him to the point where, in order to feel like the real monarch, he must ceremoniously burn his father's mahiole. The unification of Hawaii is of little concern to him. His only desire is for the god of battle and all of Hawaii to submit to him. Therefore, will Kahekili betray Keoua? Compared to the last king of Hawaii, Keoua had significantly higher goals. However, whereas Kalaniopeu was naturally admired by his people, Keoua seeks to gain that respect by violence and bloodshed. Keoua's specialty is violence and fear. Although he has walked confidently away from Kupuohi and Kaiana's offer of peace, he has little chance of defeating Kamehameha if he does face him. Even his mother is aware of that. Kamehameha will be unbeatable due to the combined power of the Europeans' red-mouthed weapons and the blessings of the battle god. She is not incorrect. Keoua should be terrified of Kamehameha's army's alertness when Tony introduces them to the world of firearms. However, his mother has a solution for him. She encourages him to turn to his enemy's enemy, Kahekili. Although Keoua has no issue with Kahekili, Kalaniopeu was never very fond of him. Keoua can only turn to Kahekili's ominous altar when all other options have been exhausted. Naturally, Kahekili is ecstatic to learn that the strongest kingdom he seeks to subjugate has a weakness. He is, however, much more thrilled by Keoua's pledge of loyalty in return for troops who will defeat Kamehameha in combat. Keoua was aware of his protection. Kamehameha would render Hawaii virtually impenetrable if Kahekili murdered Keoua. Keoua's arrogance prevents him from seeing that Kahekili won't require him once he vanquishes Kamehameha. He is sending Apanui, his most insane warrior, to command his army in Keoua's conflict with Kamehameha because of this. Apanui shares Kahekili's principles as a warrior. He intends to carry out his king's unspoken will. Perhaps Keoua just signed his own death warrant by supporting Kahekili and upsetting his cousin. Apanui intends to disembowel him as soon as Kamehameha is finished. It goes without saying that men who are governed by violence can hardly touch Kamehameha. Despite his strength, he only understands how to take care of himself because of his empathy and resolve to reign with kindness. His wife, Kahumanu, is the only other individual he fully confides in for his and Hawaii's well-being. Because to Kaiana's desperate desire for conflict, Kamehameha is now doubting his future. Kamehameha will continue to believe in Kaiana's position in their aspirations for a united Hawaii, however, as long as Kahumanu sticks up for him. Normally anxious, Moku fears that any future repercussions between Kaiana and Kamehameha might be borne by Kahumanu. However, Kaiana may become indispensable to Kamehameha due to the ship that sails to the Hawaii coast at the end of Chief of War Episode 6. Humanitarian service is not Captain Metcalf's goal. The fear of colonialism is evoked by his trip to Hawaii. He wants to be in charge of the islands. Kaiana is the only one who can defend his home from outside threats because he is the only one who truly understands the Paleskin people.